What genre is my book? That's a question that we're hopefully going to answer today in the podcast. So stay tuned.
Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian dystopian fantasy.
Welcome to everybody listening live. We have a very awesome group of chatters that visit with us every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We also appreciate those of you who are listening to us later on any platform where you can find podcasts. You'll find the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. And if you are looking at us on YouTube, would you please hit the like and subscribe button? And if you like what we're doing here, tell a friend. If you hate what we're doing here, tell everyone you know.
And provide links so they can hate us too.
It's a great line.
I know. Although if we did really have a whole bunch of like haters come for us, what would that meeting be like?
Mm-hmm.
How would we really feel about it? Like, would we really be like, well, there's no such thing as bad publicity? Like, really? How do you think we would handle it?
I can't stand trolls, so I probably would not handle it well. Well, okay, we know how I would handle it.
Sugar Baker would come out.
Yes, I would not handle it well. I would be right back in their face, which is not the best thing to do with trolls. Like, you just need to ignore them. But yeah, so we have Shell in our chat. Good morning, Shell. It's so early for her. She's over on our West Coast. We know that for sure. I hear music. I hear some theme music happening in the background or something. And then Gigi, good morning, Gigi on the East Coast here with us. Good morning, Brian. Brian should be writing. No. Right now, this is okay to be here for the podcast.
This is part of the process.
Yes. I shared in our Facebook group. And by the way, if you're not part of our Facebook group, you need to be. But this week I came across, I was scrolling when I should have been writing, and I came across this image and I was like, oh, okay, this is my sign that I need to be off of Facebook. And so I shared it to our Facebook group and said, here's your sign to stop scrolling on Facebook and get back to writing. And it was this image of a wolf spider carrying all its baby spiders on it. And it was like up close. And it is the most, and I'm not afraid of spiders, but it was the most disgusting, gross, like thing I did not need to see. And that was like, yeah, get off of Facebook. So good morning, Teresa. So,
what a cute picture.
Oh, let's look at it again. Aww. I love when you guys put your pictures on YouTube so that we can see what you look like. It's one of my favorite
things. And don't forget, if you're listening to us in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and you can
we're never going to let this die.
I'm serious though, because every day I get an email that says, you're doing great in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I'm like, I want to hear from a listener out there, like for real. So send us an email or show up in the chat one day. I don't know how many.
Could be in the middle of the night there or something. I have no clue.
Yeah. Like, imagine if we're keeping someone company as they're like comforting their children in the middle of the night or something. Wouldn't that be awesome? Anyway, we'd love to hear from our listeners. So chime in and let us know.
Teresa agrees that was disturbing, the spider picture.
Did
it encourage you to go right? That's what I'm here for. Disturbing.
Yeah.
This is where horrors come from.
Yes.
And they go right about it.
I'm your little writing fairy. If you get out of line, ping, here's a disturbing image. You're going to be on Facebook, ping, this is what we got to look at.
We get you writing one way or another here on the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. So, what's up with everybody in the chat? We usually kick off the podcast with the what's up, everybody? What's up with you this week, Jen?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that me and Susan are both doing very well. I've not killed her yet, so which is ideal relationship with a plant. So
She's
she's
even
doing
like
great.
leaning toward you.
She loves me.
What kind of plant is that?
It's called a snake plant. They're really hard to kill.
Is that mother-in-law's tongue?
No, I think they're just called snake plant, right?
There's some plant, yeah, I'm talking like there's a what do
I
you
don't know.
call it? Like fun name for them, nickname, like it's not the genus and the species.
Oh, I have a lot of plants around my house and they're all doing very well. When we first moved in, my plants just kept dying and I don't know what was happening. I think
Mm.
watering them with faucet water and we have a softener and the salt was just like killing them.
Yes, it is called mother-in-law's tongue, aka snake plant. So it's just another, I guess people who well, I guess you really don't like your mother-in-law. It's like a snake plant
I
and
love
she's
my
a-
mother-in-law. She's sweet.
So for me, my what's up this week is just been I've been doing some editing. I'm also getting ready for Nano. So I've been doing some Preptober kind of things. You might have noticed if you're in our Facebook group that I kind of threw it out there if anybody would be interested in some like little prep sessions. And a few people said yes. There's still time to join. So if you're interested, Sunday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern is when we're doing it. So go join the Facebook group, go look for my posts, and I will be putting a link in right before we go live. We're just kind of, it was just me and Teresa last week because there wasn't a whole lot of like prep and that worked out fine. But yeah, if you want some help with your plotting or just like kind of some like partnerships and talking about plotting and preparing for NaNoWriMo, come join us.
Yeah, talking about your piece is one way to make sure like it's really invigorating and sometimes you've got to find other writers because really who else in your life wants to hear you talk about it that much? Other writers do, because they get it.
Right. And it wasn't until I sat down with Teresa I realized how many different types of planning I had gone through before I got to where I had found something that works for me, and so
Wow, that's awesome.
it helps to be with other writers too and talk about their processes and stuff.
Hmm.
Brian says, getting my writing space cleaned out today, it becomes a catch-all. Yes. Oh my gosh, me too, Brian.
Mm.
Like I said to my husband, I gave or maybe it was one of my daughters, a list of things I have to get done before November hits. And one of them was I had to clean my office. Like clearly I can use it, but it just the headspace that it takes up when I see all the other stuff that has ended up in here. So, and Teresa says, I recommend. Aw, Jen is so incredibly helpful. Aw, thank you, Teresa. She said, so grateful for this group. I appreciate that, Teresa, because that just helps me to know that it's working, that it's helping. And that's the whole point is I want to help you guys. So
That's great. Yeah.
all right. What about you,
Teresa.
Jamie? What's up with you?
I am continuing with my what the Stoics said and what the Bible says parallels. Marcus Aurelius once said, the best answer to anger is silence.
See, trolls, you should ignore them.
That's what I was going to say. I should just give my what's up right now. And so I have actually two Bible verses that I wanted to share because the first one is the one that I thought was the best one to share, but then the other one is a verse that I paraphrase all the time. Mm-hmm. So James 1:19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God, which that'll preach, eh? And then Deuteronomy 32:35. To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them make haste. It's like, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. You know what I mean?
Right, but so truly, like, you guys, we joke about me being a Julia Sugarbaker or Dorothy from our little group of
Golden Girls. Yeah.
But it's true. That is me. And Jamie just loves it. She cracks up every time I turn into that. But it's not a good thing. Like, because honestly, like the sharp tongue that I have, is that really going to affect them as much as it would be just to be quiet and let God take care of it? Right.
It's so funny though, because the harder the shell, the more ooey and gooey the center. I'm just saying, because you also have a side of you that is so like soft, So that's why I think it amuses me so much, is because it's like, oh, you think you're mad, but I could turn you around in 2 seconds by just saying
So true.
whatever.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I'm so my mom and that. My mom was always like this tough talker, and then she was the first one to be like, "It's okay." We used to tease her all the time. Shell says she's been using the Instagram Inktober daily prompts as writing prompts. Lots of fun and getting back to writing every day. That's awesome.
Yeah. And if you follow Shell on social, you'll be able to see she'll snap a picture of it. It's really a cool thing she does.
Yep.
So she handwrites them, which is interesting because it's in the spirit of Inktober, because a lot of those are drawings. So I think it's neat that she handwrites the stories. Tina, what's up with you?
Well, I have to say that when you were saying your verses, what came to my mind was the saying, "It's better to close your mouth and be thought a fool than open it up and remove all doubt." And I've heard that attributed to Abraham Lincoln. I've also heard it attributed to the Bible. I'm not sure it's if that's a direct quote or if it's a paraphrase of something the Bible says. But I remember finding something sometime somewhere in the Bible that fit. But anyway, I don't really have much of a what's up because I have been down with the flu all week. So I didn't get the chest congestion, but I definitely have head congestion and body aches and all that stuff. So
what's up? Barely Tina.
Yeah. You need to find out you need to find out the source and then just never visit that source again.
Agreed.
Where did you get it, the cold?
That's not going to work. With my pregnant daughter, I think, or my granddaughter, or maybe a little of both of them.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah.
Aww. Well, I'm so glad that you and your daughter are close enough to share the sniffles. I think that's very sweet. And we're looking forward to that little peanut.
I know. And we really appreciate you being here today, Tina. And we won't make you talk a whole lot.
I just have to say that the little peanut my daughter's 34 weeks gestation. And the little peanut already weighs 6 pounds, 4 ounces. And is 17.7 inches long.
It's a jumbo peanut.
Thinking she's not making it to her due date.
Probably
and
not.
It's a good thing I canceled my Vegas trip. So.
Yeah, a few people probably getting ready to go to that, right?
Yep.
So Teresa, go ahead, Jen.
Nope, go ahead.
Teresa Thomas says, today I'm going to try and do some more Preptober and wash all the dishes. Good for you, Teresa. If you wash even half of them, that's a win.
Right. Do mine when you're done.
Yeah, right.
Boy, you don't want to do your writing when you'd rather wash dishes.
I never want to wash dishes more than writing. I will find other ways of avoiding my writing, but it's never dishes.
I think maybe I'd rather go to the dentist than wash the dishes.
Luckily, my girls are old enough now that's their chore. Though I do a lot of dishes. They do a lot too, so that makes it so much easier.
I hate to break it to you, but that doesn't last.
I know they're gonna move out someday.
They move out, and then it's just you. There's nobody around to make.
And then you're like, dishes. Who made this mess? Oh, me.
Right.
All right. Well, let's dive into our topic du jour now that we're all caught up. And that topic is, what genre is my book? And I just kind of want to take a moment. Picture it. Flint, Michigan. I wrote what I have since thought of in my own mind as the Callahan Capers. Although when I read about capers, they're not really capers, which makes me mad because I'm not talking about the little peppercorns. I'm talking about the kind of story. So I wrote this book, and it's about kind of a guy who lives the life of a noir detective in modern day times. He likes to wear trench coats, and he solves mysteries, and he's got this young woman who's his sidekick or whatever. And when I was done writing it, I was like, I don't know what genre this is. And in hindsight, right now, sitting in this chair, I'm like, well, it's mystery, first of all. They're big categories, but it was not an Agatha Christie. So to me, I was like, to call it a mystery is going to make people think it's one kind of a thing when it's really not, because it's kind of like a little romping, frolicky type of a tale.
Mhm.
And so I was like, what genre is this book? And I still feel like people need more resources if they end up like me. Like if there's somebody who just wrote something and now they have to talk about it and can't. And so we dove into this topic a little bit further, and that's today's episode.
Right. And I would say that you're not alone. I would think the majority of authors that start out, at least the ones that I seem to talk to or that show up in Facebook groups, or the majority of people that start out writing, right, because they have a story. They're not thinking about the genre, and then they write something. Tina's got her hand raised in the air if you're listening. And then they don't know what genre it is. And then you have to like go backwards and make it fit a genre, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today too. So, because if you write like me, historical Christian romance, and someone asks you, what do you write? You say historical Christian romance. It's not hard, right? Well, what if I said I write romance? Well, that's a huge umbrella, right? Is it
Mm-hmm.
spicy? Is it like paranormal? Is it Christian? Like there's like just so what Jamie was saying, yeah, like you can put it under a big umbrella and technically that's genre, but it's the subgenres and stuff that are going to help you, and we'll talk about why it's important too. So
Well, yeah, we're going to talk about why it's important. And I mean, I think, like, first of all, what do they say when you're going to talk about your book to, say, publishers or just anybody who could possibly help you? You need to put together kind of an elevator pitch for it.
mhm.
And you need some of these phrases and subgenres to help you do that, right?
Mhm.
I run into trouble even at, like, if you go back and watch the beginnings of our podcast over the last 6 months and count how many different genres I say that I write, but I've only written 2 books. So, like, my books fall into so many different categories, so I really don't know what I write. I mean, honestly, I write Christian fiction, and there's some
Mhm.
fantasy in there, and it's kinda dystopia, and, it's action adventure, and there's a dog, so
And there's a dog.
Jen,
So
it's
yes.
easy for you, right? Because
Yeah.
if you just go looking around, okay, I wrote a romance. What kind of a romance did I write? You can find lists.
Yes, you can, and but there are so many subgenres, like I was kind of hinting at before. So under romance, I truly am a romance writer, but and that's the conventions that I write under. However, there's so many subgenres, but in each of those subgenres, there are going to be some non-negotiables, like has to have a happily ever after. But what about the rest? Like, how do you figure out where you fit in? And so whether no like and you may be coming at this as a listener and have not even a clue. Like romance is a little bit easier, if it's about a couple that are falling in love and they end up together at the end, it's a romance, right? But what kind of romance? So
Yeah, and what if they do all of those things except end up together? Well, now you're kind of in a pickle. I
then
mean,
it's not a romance.
I think that
Yeah.
I'm just gonna I have not done any research, but I have a feeling that that's a lot of people because I
Yes.
hear, well, there is romance in my book, and people will say I wrote a romance, and then you listen to them talk about it, and you're like, no, you didn't. But
Right.
then they're like, well, then what is this book? And it's kind of like
Yeah.
beats me, probably beats you too. You know what I
Right.
mean?
So let's jump into like how do you find out what your genre is? If you're in this boat like Tina was, and again, Tina's not feeling well, so I'm going to be doing a lot of the talking. She will jump in to correct me or to add to it. But so you have a book, you've written a book, and you don't know what the genre is. You thought you were writing something, or maybe you didn't even think about genre at all. You just had this story and you wrote it. Now what? Well, so the number one thing you need to do is you need to read the top sellers, not just anything you find somewhere or get for free, the top sellers of what you believe that your genre is. And more importantly, what you believe the subgenre is. And here's why this is important because there will be people, like Jamie pointed out, there will be people who say, I wrote a romance, and they'll throw it up and they'll put it out as romance, and they might even offer it, let's say, free to sign up for their newsletter or whatever. You can't really trust that they have it right either. The top sellers will have it right because the people that read that genre will not pass on word of mouth and say, oh, this one's great. Like it won't make it to the top sellers if it doesn't match that genre. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you'll by doing that, you'll figure out pretty quick, my book is nothing like these books, you know? I mean, how many do you
Mhm.
have to read before you realize, "Oh, wait." Because if your people don't end up together, there's probably an awful lot of, like, I don't know, angst or conflict or some other
Right.
element to the story that's also not going to match what you would find in the top 20
It
romance books, just to stick with this particular example.
That example, you're probably women's fiction is probably where you're gonna fall, and,
Mm.
that has a romantic or has some romance in it, but you're not a romance. Okay, so my number one, suggestion is to read a lot of the top sellers in what the genre you think it is. So if you find that they read similar to yours, great. If you find that they don't, then you're gonna have to start snooping around, right? And let me tell you too, this is not easy. I should have started off with this. This is not going to be easy. This is not going to be a quick fix. You might hate us by the end of this podcast, but in a year, let's say, after you do this work, keep writing other things and keep reading things and things that you enjoy, then try to emulate it or try to figure out what they did that you enjoyed, right? These are the things that Tina did. This is how Tina now is narrowing down and figuring out what she actually wrote is by reading and reading and reading and reading things that she thought was her genre and realizing that's not what my book is, and then shifting and finding other books that were more similar and reading them and figuring that out.
I am
You
having flashbacks to last week when I said, slow down.
Yeah.
Because the reason that people are typically like in a hurry to solve this problem is they're in a hurry to slap a for sale sticker on their story and get it out there to the world. Teresa Thomas shared, she heard once that if you have a list of genres, then you really don't know your book. And that bugged me because it felt like that meant I knew it better. That's totally how I felt about my book. I heard that same advice. Well, if you don't know what genre it is, then it's not a well-written book, is actually what I heard. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I was like, it doesn't have to fit conventions to be a story that everybody's going to enjoy. Because arguably it's not well written. Like if Jamie today read Jamie from that long ago's work, she might say, yeah, it's not a well-written book. But aside from that, it just really did not fit all of the tropes or whatever. Like it was not an Agatha Christie. I'm just kind of trying to use that as something to
Mhm.
hang my hat on. And every other way I tried to compare it to things I knew, it was
Mhm.
not matching up. But Teresa said, yeah, people will tell you that means something negative about your book or
Right.
your story. Hmm.
And
What
like
I
with my book, it fit well into several different genres. And so I didn't know which one to pick.
Well, there you
So,
go.
all right, let me be specific. Was it several different genres or several different
There
subgenres?
was several different subgenres
Yes.
Yeah.
of
Right.
Christian fiction.
So that I agree with. But if you're trying to say that my book is a romance and a mystery and a science fiction, I might, I don't agree with the person that said this to Teresa. However, that when you look at your book, there's one of them that comes out ahead when we're talking the whole big umbrella. Like Jamie figured
Yes.
out that the big
Yes.
umbrella was mystery for her.
Yes, and what
Yes.
I was lacking because I was like, but it isn't a mystery because my conception of what mystery was very
Yeah.
narrow, and it was
Yeah.
way before Amazon was what it is, and
Mhm.
this whole ideal of marketing to a more niche market was real. And so I think that at the end of the day, that was ultimately my dilemma, was that I did not have knowledge about the fact that there are people who write to these subgenres.
Right.
And I think we're going to get a little more into those, right?
Agreed. So
Because, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so make sure you're reading some top sellers in the genre that you believe that you are in. Then start looking at subgenres and trying to figure out, well, where exactly do I fit? So for me, it was obvious romance. Tina, I think she knew, maybe not, maybe she didn't know if she was fantasy or like that, but that's what she did all that work to reading it. You can also read blurbs. So that doesn't take away from reading actual books. You need to read actual books, but to get a bigger, broader picture of the genre, go and read a bunch of blurbs. well-written blurbs, and then that will give you some insight into, because in my blurbs I try to like kind of hide in there tropes as well for romance. So you'll see some commonalities, just like when we were doing book covers and doing blurbs, and we had you look at a bunch of book covers and we had you look at a bunch of blurbs and look for commonalities. Same thing when you're reading these blurbs, look for story elements that are commonalities and see if any of them match up with what you've written.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's the kicker. When you find a book that you think is books, plural, that you think are fits, then read the reviews, because the negative reviews and what people did not like, and take notes on what is in common with them. This is not a romance because there was not a happily ever after. This book didn't have a happily ever, or I thought this was a clean romance, but there was they had a sex scene, or I thought that this was Christian romance. God isn't mentioned at all. It's clean. There's nothing offensive in it, but it's not a Christian romance. I find that a lot. There are a lot of books that Christian authors write that are just sweet romance, and they throw it into the Christian category, and that makes some Christian readers upset. They're looking for something bigger. They're looking for more of a God element in it. So read the reviews, and that will give you some earmarks of what are expected in that particular genre, and that will help you to match up your book to genres as well. So that's the first way, is to look at books in the genre that you believe. The other thing is go look for industry associations. For me, it's kind of romance is just so much easier. I don't know if romance is easier or it's just because I know it.
It's
You know,
easier because it's so ubiquitous. Like a lot of people like romance. It's what did you use that phrase, cheer chasing, Jen?
yeah.
And I think a lot of people who read really are looking for an escape and something really good and great to be happening. And it's
Right.
a story of something really great and good that is happening, and people love it. And there's just a huge, massive market. And so resources abound because it's a very, very popular genre.
Right. But mystery is also a popular
Yeah.
genre. Science fiction is also a popular genre. And I think that if I wrote either one of those, I would probably have gone and found the industry associations for people that write science fiction.
Yeah.
Or middle grade or what have you. Like if you join the Romance Writers of America, first of all, you can go to their website and you can find information, but if you join, you get more information. They have on their website and in their groups, they have the standards. Like you can find resources to help you figure out what your genre is, or if there's a specific genre you want to write, these are the things you have to do within your book to fit that standard. The American Christian Fiction Writers, if you want to write Christian fiction, you need to be aware of their website, because they, and this is why it's important. It's not because there's some sort of figurehead. There's not like this, like League of Justice that sits down and makes these decisions. It's because they do the research. They listen to readers. They follow readers and do the research with the readers and know what the readers want and what they're expecting. And that's how they compile what is the expectation for romance or for Christian writing or like that. So that will help you to either decide what your genre of your book is, or to help you to write your next book that would be fitting to a genre.
There's also Facebook groups if you can't afford to join those organizations. Like Realm Makers Consortium is one for Christian fantasy. That has been really helpful, and they have conferences and stuff. So they have a lot of information.
If you join a Facebook group, we talked about this in our meeting. I don't know if it made it into the outline or not. I don't see it right now, but we talked about it. If you join a Facebook group, don't just jump in there and then start asking questions, because you're going to get a bunch of people like you that don't know what you're doing answering that question. Go in there for a while, read people's posts,
make use of this search thing,
and look under the files, because a lot of times if they're offering advice, they'll put it in the files.
And the people you'll come to see people that know what they're talking about, people that give good advice, that are encouraging to other writers that have been in the game for a while. And then you're going to start to recognize their names. And then when you ask questions and you get 20, 30, 40 responses, the 4 or 5 people that are like have put the time and the effort in and are working and know what they're talking about, you're going to look at their answers with a little bit more weight than others. Would you guys agree with that?
Like, yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So we've gone through this and talked about those are the two main ways I say that's how you figure out the three-way main ways, sorry, that you figure out what your genre is going to Facebook groups, talking to other writers. That's another great thing too. So where do you find the writers? Facebook groups, writing groups, that kind of stuff. But talking to other people that are successful in that genre, that's where you're going to find out. But why does it even matter?
It
Why do we
doesn't
care?
unless
Unless you're going to
you want to
market.
sell the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you're getting frustrated and you're like, I don't really care. That's fine. Don't care. If
No, you
you
don't
just
have
had
to
a
care.
book and you just want to write it, we support that. And we're not being
Mhm.
sarcastic. We support that. You wrote a book. That is huge accomplishment. Good for you. Like, we are so happy that you're here.
Yeah,
But
or if you're like, but I still want to call it a romance, even if it isn't, maybe. Or you're like, I don't care what you say. I'm going to call this sci-fi or a mystery. You know what I mean?
right. I mean, no, there's no police that are come arrest you if you do that.
Nope.
But you're not gonna be able to sell your book. So the only reason that this is important is if you want to sell your book. And if you want to sell your book, genre matters
Yeah.
because first of all, Tina, share your experience at the book fair if you feel like it right
Yeah.
now.
Well, at the book fair, it was the first time for the guy that organized it, so there weren't a lot of readers that walked in the door. But so that gave me a chance to walk away from my table and walk around and look at what all the other authors were doing and talk to them and really learn a lot of things. The first thing that struck me was the girl. I was two tables from a corner, and she was two tables from that same corner on the other end.
Mhm.
She was wearing steampunk glasses on the top of her head,
Mhm.
and that immediately caught my attention. And I knew immediately what she wrote. And I went
Mhm.
over there and talked to her, and she said, "Usually I wear a corset and a whole costume, but I didn't know if it would be appropriate for this venue, so I just wore the steampunk glasses." And then she had another pair on the table that you could look through if you wanted to see what it looked like. So that was really cool. A lot of the authors that are experienced authors going to book shows a lot, they didn't have their name on their big banner. They didn't have the names of their books. They had their genre in great
Mhm.
big letters.
Mhm.
And that's what the readers, when you're sitting at a book show with a whole lot of different authors, because readers generally are one or two trick ponies, and they have a genre that they like to read, and that's what they're looking for. And if you like steampunk and you walked into that book show, you were going straight for the girl with the steampunk glasses. And
Mhm.
if you like
Oh,
steamy romance, you were going straight for the lady with the big black banner that said steamy romance.
Mhm.
yeah.
um
And I think, you know what? As you say this, I'm wondering if this is part of my issue is that I tend to care more about the writer's voice than I care about the genre. Like I'm a wide reader, and I
Mhm.
think that that could possibly be why I have such a roadblock as far as what do
yeah,
I write? Do you know what
you're
I
in
mean?
the
Because I don't know what
minority.
I read either. Yes,
Yeah.
and I would think, why am I in the minority? Isn't everybody like me? No, no, everybody is not
Well,
like
I'm
you.
like that too. I'm in the
Mhm.
minority, but I do have like 7 different genres that I really like.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Right.
but yeah, that was very obvious to me that the people who knew what they were doing, who'd been doing this for a long time, knew that what brings people to the table was their genre and not anything else.
So that's in-person events. Now,
Yeah.
the same goes for online marketing. Like
Yeah.
the people that know what they're doing, their book covers look a certain way because they know that they have to appear a certain way to attract the readers of that genre. They know like the blurb the next thing is the blurb. They know that it has to be a certain way to attract readers of that genre. And so if that's something that you don't care about, that's fine. But if you want to market, it starts before you even start writing your book. It
Bum,
is
bum, bum.
it's choosing a genre and sticking to the conventions of that genre before you even start like, and when you're plotting,
Or
which
not, again, or not.
again or
But if
not.
you
Only if you want to market is what I'm saying.
yes, if
Yes.
you right, because if you're coming into NaNoWriMo this year, you got a story burning in your heart and you wanna tell it,
Mhm,
and then you hear us say, "But you need to consider tropes," and you're just kinda like, "But I don't want to," then don't. But if
mhm,
you think that this is gonna be your runaway bestseller, you're gonna be the next person who wrote I don't know, the Twilight thing, or these people who are independent but then suddenly blow up. People need to know what to expect when they pick up your book. I mean, it's
Yes.
if you just kind of think it through a little bit, it just sort of makes sense. Now, it's no one's saying you shouldn't write the book that is in your heart. That's not what we're saying. We're
Right.
just saying that when it comes time to market, you're going to have higher hurdles to
Right.
get over.
Because let me blow your mind. It is genre isn't the only thing that matters. Subgenre matters too. Right now, I write historical Christian romance, and that is as niche as Amazon will take it. And I am fighting right now against Christian Regency romances to chart. There's all kinds of American historical Christian romances out there, all kinds of them. But because of a certain television series I won't mention that's on Netflix that's not clean. I'll tell you right now, it's not clean. Everybody wants to read Regency right now. I love Regency. I love all historical Christian romance. I am like a huge fan. I'll read, and I like to write all of it, but I'm not going to write Regency because they are the most rabid fans. And if you get anything about the time period wrong, they will crucify you. But anyway, that's a whole nother side thing. So even subgenre matters. So like there's a book out by Chris Fox wrote a book called Right to Market, and I'm not going to go into it, but it's not an expensive book. You can get it as an ebook. It's a pretty quick read that will also help you with this type of stuff. But yeah, so Jamie mentioned that writing the book in your heart, that's awesome. Tina wrote the book that was in her heart, but she wants to market it now. So what did you end up doing, Tina? You had to reverse engineer this, right?
Yeah, well, there were several people that were beta readers for me
Mm-hmm.
who made comments like, your book reminds me of Frank Peretti.
Yeah.
So I went looking at Frank, and I know that in This Present Darkness, he shows the spiritual world and the physical world. He goes back and forth in between chapters. One chapter is the spiritual world and one is the physical world. And so you can see both of those things in my book, book one that I wrote. And so I saw a similarity there. And then there were a couple other authors that people said, "Oh, you said this book reminds me of."
Mm-hmm.
And most of them were fantasies. Not all of them were Christian fantasies, but most of them were fantasies. And so I kind of, since Christian dystopian was not a thing that I could choose, I went with Christian fantasy.
So you found a situation where you found something close enough, but
Close enough.
it is harder for you to market.
It
Like
is
you would
because
agree.
I'm not exactly like I
Mhm.
don't hit all of the Christian fantasy tropes.
Right.
And it's not a strong fantasy. There's fantasy elements in it, but it's not a super strong fantasy.
Right. So it's not impossible to market a book that you did not write to genre. It's not impossible to take your book that you wrote and when you didn't know anything about genre, but you've written it now and now you want to market it. It's not impossible. It is going to be a little bit more difficult, but you can do it. Just keep watching our show and listen to us because we'll help you because we're doing the same thing, right? We're following Tina's process and her journey as a writer, and so hopefully you'll be. But we just wanted to really make sure you guys knew that this, like I said it earlier, I'm gonna say it again. This is not going to be an easy process. If you didn't come into this like me, already know what your genre was, already understanding the conventions of your genre and tropes and all that kind of stuff, but you've been writing. It's not going to be easy, but it is possible. You'll be able to do it. And I will say to you, the longer that you're in the genre, the easier it gets because you make connections with people. End up in groups where you learn things. You learn marketing advice that ends up helping you figure out your genre. Like the more you're in this business, the easier it will become. And so hopefully that it encourages you, not discourages you this episode. I hope we didn't discourage anybody.
And I should just have this little disclaimer of saying that when I'm done with this book, it ends the trilogy that came from that one book that I had that made me want to be an author.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to switch up my subgenres so that I can have something firmly in a marketing niche where I know what the tropes need to be, and I know clearly what my covers need to look like, and I know clearly how I need to market it.
And sometimes that's the best advice anyone can give a writer is move on to the next book. Because sometimes we struggle with a series and, but you know what? It's not wasted. no matter what, how much writing you did, you didn't waste your time. You've become a better
Right.
writer through that. And sometimes it's just best to move on to the next series and just keep writing.
And if anybody is like me and is going to remain genre homeless, I hereby say that we start a new trend where this genre is genre homeless fiction.
I think they call that
You
literary.
never know what you're going to get when you pick up this person's book. It could be a mystery. It could be a sign language raccoon. It could be genre homeless.
She's
I
not
mean,
making
just,
this up. These are really her books.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. There's I have no illusions about the fact that I'm going to have a rough time with sales. And that's the key of it is again, because buyers expect the product to be a certain thing. And if you can't deliver to that buyer what they want, they're going to pass. It's not a judgment. It's not then you did it wrong. But you just have to understand the reality of what you're up against if you're not going to immerse yourself into one particular genre and get good at turning out that type of a product. You're just not, you're going to have a different battle to fight is all that I'm kind of saying. It won't be as easy as making sure you're checking off the boxes. You're going to have to be really super creative, and you're going to have to like be willing to maybe not hit it big until after you're dead, you know, or something like that, or writing the one that people really like and then hearing disappointment when they pick up your other book and it isn't the same genre. I mean, you're just signing on for that kind of a journey, which is fine.
I think
It's not hopeless because there's an author who I just read an article about. I hesitate to say her name because what she writes doesn't fit in with what we do. But she writes in multiple genres. She says she likes it that way. She has no plans of changing that, and she's got multiple books in the top lists on the New York Times bestseller list.
Well, there you go.
There you go. And if we can say anything that's encouraging, it's that there are readers out there,
Yep.
no matter what other people try to say. This is why we're hoping to lift you all up. There is plenty of readers. There are more readers than there are writers out there. And there are so many readers that will read just so much stuff that can't get enough books in them. So if anything, we want to encourage you that there's a reader out there for your book, especially if you feel like God gave you that book. If he gave you that book, then it deserves the time and effort to write the book and then to put the marketing work into it, because no ministry out there just happens. No pastor builds a church in his stands or said, all right, well, it's here. I did what God wanted me to do and just wait for people to show up. It's work. Ministry is work. And so there's readers. You can do this.
And I don't want this to come off wrong. This might sound really horrible. But when I was 10 years old, I ran out of books to read. And that's why I read the Bible.
I'm not sure if that's encouraging or not.
I'm just saying, a 10-year-old girl sat down and read the Bible from end to end because she needed. There's readers out there that will read anything and everything they can get their hands on.
And God's up there right now saying, oh, yeah, that was an accident that you ran out of books, Tina.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
All right. Well, we're up against the clock, so it's time to move on. We're going to move on to my favorite part of every Friday, which is the feeding of the backs. This is when we give each other all kinds of positive, encouraging feedback about a piece of writing that we've done. Why? Because this is a writing sprint that we literally do 15 minutes before we go live. We set a timer and we write to a prompt, and then we bring these stories to you to praise. We don't do any negative criticism here because we all would like to say, if I had just another couple of weeks with this, I could polish it. So we don't give negative feedback, only positive. And if you want to participate, set a timer, write to our prompt and post it in our Facebook group, and then put it all over your own social media, put it on your website. You are a writer after all. Show the world what you can do. And you can develop a good writing habit that way by at least writing with us this one time a week. You are a writer, so write. All right, so lecture over. Jen, I always like to pick on you. What was the sprint prompt today, and what did you write?
Well, it was second Friday, so second Friday sentence, and the sentence was, he said the telegram had arrived at noon. And it wasn't until I started writing that I realized how poorly that sentence was written, because shouldn't it have been,
yes, I know,
he
I
had
didn't
said.
like it either.
Yeah, it was just so. Anyway, also, I struggled with this one, and I think it's mostly because I'm so deep into plotting this book for NaNoWriMo, and Telegram doesn't fit anywhere in there. So I just like, if it was the word telegram, I could have used it. But like this sentence just did not. So
I
anyway,
think I used telegraph when I wrote my story. Oh no. And here I was all proud of myself for using it.
all right,
Oh
here we
no. Okay, go ahead.
He'd said the telegram had arrived at noon. That was 4 hours ago, plenty of time for Kate to have received the correspondence and responded, yet he said nothing to Colleen. Maybe it wasn't the bad news that he'd been expecting, she mused. It was possible that it had all worked itself out on its own, wasn't it? She had spent a sleepless night pondering this mysterious telegram that Cade had been waiting for impatiently. Was it from home? She knew Cade still had family in the South, a couple of brothers, she thought. She'd overheard him make mention of them once while he was in Chappie saddled the horses before the morning ride. His brothers. That is who the telegram most likely is from, since Cade is so anxious for it. Who else could it be? Unless, she thought solemnly, it was from a woman. It was from a woman. Cade was a handsome man. It would be ridiculous to think that a man as good looking and successful as Cade McNeil wouldn't have a girlfriend, or a wife for that matter, waiting for him to send for them now that his ranch was profitable. That would explain why his place was so void of any comforts a woman brings to a place. His woman just hadn't made it here yet. It made sense. It also made Colleen a little sad, and she wasn't certain why. That's it.
We're certain why.
There was some terrible writing in
Colleen.
there. Yeah.
Oh,
that was
like we
clunky.
said, like this is a sprint, and then you're just working out the story, and it's a great storyline. It has the tension, it has the angst of I don't know why I'm so upset. He's might got like another woman. We're like, oh yeah, sure you don't.
Yeah, Jen, positive feedback only here for just this reason. We know that writing sprints are exactly that. They're writing sprints. It's 15 minutes. The goal is to get you to be writing today. And you did write today. And it was, like Tina said, it was obviously not without merit and really good, you know? And especially with that prompt being written as clunkily as it is. And it's neat to kind of get a peek into Colleen's thinking. Because it's funny how she is just like lying to herself throughout this whole book. Why should I care if he has a wife? Right. You know?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right. So Tina, I'll go next. That way it's not too much of me right in a row. Here we go. How long has he been missing? Charlotte picked at the skin flaking from her chapped lips. Mike licked his in quasi-subconscious sympathy and shifted in his jacket, readjusting the pen and pad he held. Merle saw him last. He'd run the message up to the house, and got no answer. Charlotte wasn't looking at Mike anymore. Her gaze had gone to the distant hillside, and her mind had gone God only knows where. Sympathy gone, Mike huffed. If they were going to get any answers, he needed her to stay present. He was about to open his mouth and say so when Joni sauntered over. I spoke to the telegram delivery guy. He said the telegram had arrived at noon and told me 8 times he hadn't been drinking. Mike grinned and made a note. Is that a fact? It sure enough is. Also told me probably 100 times that he has no idea where the skunk's done slunk away off to. Skunk. Joni's lips became a thin line for a moment. Yeah. Mr. Merle there also mentioned there was no way Francis would ever take off with another woman. Mike glanced at the front porch and met 3 pairs of eyes blue as their mother's. How long have they been there, he wondered. First about the porch, then about the rickety old trailer Francis Murphy had dragged onto the family land, and then in general. The oldest was probably 10, and the baby on her lap might be 10 months. The tow-headed boy in dirty overalls was, 8 maybe? Mike turned his eyes back to his notepad and wished he had another clue to write down, at the same time wishing no such thing. Wouldn't it be better for all the Murphy children if Francis never came home at all? You have any life insurance, Mrs. Murphy? The question brought her back all right and took care of the worrisome paleness that had settled onto her complexion. The raw lips and the dirty face were now a near-perfect match of reds. You think I got something to do with Francis going missing? You think I killed him for insurance money? She slapped a hand over her mouth. Mike saw it was trembling. Her eyes went wide. My God, she breathed, sliding that hand up to smooth her hair up away from her forehead. You think he might be? She swallowed with obvious effort, and her eyes flew to where her children sat. it seems she couldn't bring herself to say the last word.
Okay, number 1, I love it. Number 2, if this is the same family, I'm glad he's gone.
Sadly, it is not.
Ah,
That family, the mother is dead and the father is
that's
in charge
right.
of them.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
Ah, darn it. Can we kill him off? So see, this just shows how even in these little small 15-minute sprints, because normally we sprint for 25 minutes, but for the episode we do only 15. For these little small sprints, it's like I'm already so invested on all your characters. Like you are able to write so well and characterize these people in such a way that like I feel like they're real and I know them and I want to save those kids from the other ones. But I also love this too. I love this narrator guy. I feel like this is why I was loving it and hoping it was the same one because I love this guy and I feel like he's the one that's going to be able to save those kids. And yeah, so well done, Jamie. Just in 15 minutes. Love it.
I
Thanks. I
love how you
appreciate that.
use like little details to bring
Mhm.
people into the story, like her chapped lips
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
just the little descriptions.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh,
Shell-
Shell likes skunk slunk.
yeah, I
Elk
love that
slunk.
too. Yeah, that was good.
Jennifer, we missed Shell says she agreed with Tina that you had good tension and setup in your
Oh.
story.
Thank you.
And then Gigi said, Jennifer, that was awesome. Poor Colleen can't get handsome Kate off her mind. whether
Poor
whether
thing.
she wants to or not, she can't stop.
Gigi
That's
also
awesome.
said to you, she said, Jamie, this is such an awesome story. I want to know more about this family. Agreed. And Shell said, great characters, Jamie. Such fine details. Agreed.
Thanks, everybody. I love Friday. All right, Tina, what did you do with this prompt?
Okay, well, this is probably a very poorly done fan fiction. In my muddled brain, that can't think straight. So
Are you going to tell us what is a fan fiction of, or we have to figure it out?
you'll know the first sentence. You'll know.
Okay.
And I didn't say the person's name because I wasn't sure what that would do for copyright issues.
Gotcha.
But you'll know.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
The Belgian detective strolled along the deck, smiling appreciatively at the water spread out to the horizon in a vast blue sheet. The sun shone brightly and warmed his face, which he held up to it. His eyes closed. Give it back. It's mine. It's my turn. I'm telling Mom. The smile disappeared from the Belgian's face and his eyes popped open. He looked down to see two boys fighting over a large blue bouncing ball. In the scuffle, the ball came loose from the boy who gripped it and came straight at the Belgian. He tapped it with his cane and it went over the railing, falling toward the blue ocean below. Oh, pardon me, he said. Your ball seems to have gone overboard. Perhaps we should call a lifeguard. The smaller boy began to wail. I'm telling my mom, whined the other. Yes, yes, run along to your mother, the Belgian agreed. Then he turned and headed back to his cabin. His irritation as his travel agent rose to dizzying heights. If he were able, he would call him this very minute and tell him what an imbecile he was for booking him on a Disney cruise instead of the relaxing one he'd envisioned, filled with fancy dressed people of his class, adults mostly, whose children had grown and threw their fits other than with their parents on vacation. I meant to say elsewhere. Just as he reached the stairs down to his deck, a young man in a bright red collared shirt with a black mouse in the breast ran breathlessly up to him. Please, sir, we need you. The captain's been murdered. The Belgian detective followed quickly after the boy, and upon entering the captain's quarters, he saw the man lying on his bed. His feet were on the floor as if he'd fallen back from sitting, and in his hands was a telegram. He carefully removed the telegram from the captain's fingers and read it. Then, looking up sharply at those gathered, he said, I must know when this telegram arrived. The red-shirted boy ran off, leaving the others to stand and whisper to each other about the tragedy before them. The Belgian used the time to study each of them carefully, watching for any sign of nervousness or suspicious behavior. The boy ran back in. He said that the telegram arrived at noon, and 3-2-1 had happened before I wrote that sentence, so I was
Aw. So first of all, I guess because I don't read mystery, I don't know who the Belgian detective is.
Hercule Poirot.
Oh,
Agatha Christie,
Agatha
like the Death
Christie.
in the Nile and
Okay.
Murder on the Orient Express, that detective.
Okay. I loved it anyway. It's so well done. Like, I love the little bits of humor. I love the characters. I love the kids that you had in there. Like, so well done. I love that he's on a Disney cruise. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and if you were familiar with Hercule Poirot, you'd know that he's like a clean freak and he's very uptight and he
Be his
very
least favorite.
OCD
Yeah.
and like
That's
he
awesome.
dresses like really fancy and just everything has to be just so.
That's awesome.
Yes, I have a love-hate thing going on with Perot because like him batting that ball right over the side because he just didn't want to be bothered with their shenanigans and their noise. Like I do not like him, but at the same time, it's like mad respect for just getting what you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
Like
still pretty funny.
I know, I gotta say, yeah, very good. And now it's like, what happened to the man with the telegraph? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Tina, Gigi says she loved this fun story. So well done. And then Teresa Thomas says same. She maybe didn't pick up, but she loved it anyway. Yeah. And Shell says, great, Tina. Fun homage. Yes.
Yep. I love it.
Great homage.
Yeah. I think, have you considered, because you've written mystery before and you watch and read a lot of mystery and you don't think you want to write mystery at all ever? Not your thing?
Here's the thing. I'm not sure I'm clever enough to write a clever detective.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like
I
you
think
have
mystery
to
is
have
hard.
like these
Yeah.
clever twists that
Mhm.
nobody sees coming, and I'm not sure I'm a clever enough writer to do that.
Right.
That is
What-
like my number one reason for not doing it.
What I think might be kind of fun is to write somebody who like accidentally stumbles upon the answer who isn't necessarily clever.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Maybe you
should
could
do
write that person.
I
I
really
guess.
You
wanna be
could write that
clever.
person. Yeah.
Right.
I
What,
really,
Tina?
really, but I would really, really want to be clever.
Well, maybe in time.
Yeah.
This person will reveal themselves to you.
I think that the accidental detective would be totally up your alley, Jamie. I
Yeah.
can see you really doing that and making it fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Theo needs to maybe be an accidental detective.
Oh my gosh, I would love some more Theo books. Oh, he's so funny.
Only
Got
if he
it.
hooks up with Cornelius.
Well, there was a book 3, which I think is lost forever, but there is a sort of a reunion in book 3 you guys would probably appreciate. Someday I'm going back to that.
Awesome.
It's good to be so busy that you're like, someday I'll get back to writing instead of writing being like a job. For me, anyway. And we know we're all different.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think that's it. And we just need the what's next from everybody so we can end right on time. What's next for you, Tina?
Well, I'm hoping to be back to my normal self by Monday so that I didn't do any writing this week. I was so out of it. I did a lot of sleeping.
Well, you did
And when I
15
wasn't
minutes of writing just
Yeah.
an hour ago.
When I wasn't sleeping, I was coughing or blowing my nose or watching Netflix. So like that's what I did this week. So I need to get my butt in gear.
All right, Jen. Well, I'll do my what's next. What's next? I don't know. Again, I'm in sort of like survival mode. I'm in school and I've got 2 jobs and I'm super duper busy, but that'll be winding down soon enough. There will be time for everything. Hopefully, we never know. We never know the time that we really have. So we need to use it wisely. What's next for you, Jen?
Well, still plugging away with editing in book 4 and Preptober. I'm getting all prepped for NaNoWriMo. It's still not too late if you want to join our Preptober planning sessions. There is a link in the show notes for our Facebook group. Just join the Facebook group and then you'll see the posts and the links will be shared every Sunday evening. So hope
It's
you guys enjoy.
exclusive to members of our
It is.
Facebook group. Ooh,
It really
look at
is.
us.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm sharing some docs that are kind of just in the works for myself. The things that they're still like prototypes of help. So you guys are kind of working as my guinea pigs as well. So
Yeah, and so far so good. Remember, endorsed by Teresa Thomas. So come and join the fun. All right. So that concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye for now.